What is really hidden beneath a geological formation that has been causing a stir on the edge of the Sahara Desert for centuries? Graham Hancock has now revealed a sudden discovery under the eye of the Sahara Desert. This mysterious structure is not, as has long been claimed, of natural origin. Rather, it could conceal important clues to an ancient and long-lost civilization. The exceptional researcher and author Graham Hancock followed the traces in the desert sand and found astonishing new clues that will change the history of mankind. The desert is much more than a place of emptiness and loneliness. The Sahara, the largest desert on Earth, is the scene of an eventful past and possibly the cradle of all modern mankind. It has not always been barren and dry. Not so long ago, the Sahara was still a green zone, and early types of people hunted here in savanna-like meadows and sparse woodlands. Later, a legendary people may have settled here, changing the history of mankind forever. On the edge of the Sahara lies a mystery that captures the imagination of local adventurers, historians, and scientists alike. The enigma of the Eye of the Sahara may hold the key to the mysteries of human history and the evolution of civilizations. The Eye of the Sahara is a geological formation consisting of almost circular rings. With a diameter of almost 50 kilometers, the fantastic structure was never visible on the ground. Only from the air did astronauts in the 1960s see what the Eye of the Sahara really is. Anyone approaching the structure on the ground, however, would see nothing more than a few natural-looking ridges and slopes. After the discovery, a hype broke out around the eye. Hundreds of archaeologists, geologists, and adventurers have studied the formation ever since. It has never been possible to fully clarify what the eye really is. The investigations have sparked a heated debate that continues to this day. Could this extraordinary structure be linked to the legendary city of Atlantis? Or are its origins purely geological, a product of ancient volcanic activity, as the majority of scientists believe? Was it a comet, or rather a volcanic eruption? Have you ever considered that this harsh landscape has undergone violent geological upheavals over thousands of years? Today, the Sahara is so quiet and peaceful that we can hardly imagine the eventful history of the desert. Millions of people, animals, and plants have survived in this harsh landscape and left their mark. In even earlier times, volcanoes raged here, the area was tropical, and even further back, there was even an ocean here. Now that the Eye of the Sahara is known, we know another important piece of the area's history. But what exactly is it? The Reshat structure, as the Eye of the Sahara is known among experts, is one of the greatest unsolved mysteries on Earth. It is unique. All initial assumptions that the structure was an impact crater of an asteroid or comet could not be confirmed. Typical traces of the impact can usually be seen in craters even after millions of years. Certain types of rock or lines reveal the high temperatures and mineral transformation processes that occur during an impact. But in the Eye of the Sahara, these clues are missing. From a geological point of view, the Reshat structure could be a dome-like formation created by the ascent of magmatic rocks beneath the Earth's crust. Over millions of years, erosion caused the softer rock layers to be removed while the harder ones remained, forming the characteristic rings. The structure includes sedimentary and volcanic rock layers, which indeed indicates a geological history. Simulations have shown that the formation could date back up to 100 million years. However, some researchers doubt this explanation because these mysterious relics are too round, too smooth, and too unique for volcanism. Graham Hancock found the solution. Can you imagine that these rings were once walls? And that inside the ramparts stretched a kingdom that fired the imagination of mankind as much as the Reshat structure? The Eye of the Sahara has captivated not only geologists, but also theorists and historians who see far more in the structure than just a natural phenomenon. One of the most prominent among them is Graham Hancock, a British author known for his speculative theories about prehistoric civilizations. Hancock is of the opinion that the Reshat structure is possibly connected to the legendary Atlantis. Atlantis was a legendary empire described by the Greek philosopher and author Plato in such captivating terms that people to this day firmly believe in the kingdom's existence. Hancock argues that the dimensions and concentric rings of the Reichat structure are exactly similar to Plato's description of Atlantis. Hancock is not alone in this. The U.S. journalist and podcaster Joe Rogan also caused a stir on several occasions by discussing the fascinating similarities with colleagues. Hancock and Rogan speculate that the Eye of the Sahara could once have been the center of a highly developed civilization that was destroyed by a catastrophe. Despite Hancock's convincing arguments, his theory remains controversial. The majority of conservative scientists reject the link between the Reichat structure and Atlantis, mainly because of the lack of direct archaeological evidence and the fact that the geological features of the structure can supposedly be well explained by natural processes. Nevertheless, Hancock's thesis is gaining more and more supporters because we have to admit that we are still missing crucial elements to decipher the true history of mankind, and possibly one of the keys is hidden here in the Sahara. Excavations are prohibited at the Eye of the Sahara. The place has been sacred to the locals for thousands of years. They say the gods live here. The Atlanteans are also to have once been compared to gods. But whether the gods of the Africans are identical to the mysterious people of Atlantis must remain a mystery for the time being. Secrets revealed beneath the sand? Who would have thought that so many traces of other past civilizations were hidden beneath the vast sandy plains of the Sahara? The Sahara was once a thriving center of trade, with dozens of caravans crossing the landscape, connecting great kingdoms that had flourished on the edge of the desert and steppes. Archaeological finds indicate that the Sahara was inhabited very early on by people who adapted perfectly to the changing environmental conditions. The first simple groups of people practiced animal husbandry and agriculture. Later, complex civilizations such as the Garamantes developed. The origins of these famous inhabitants of the Central Sahara go back to the first millennium BC. The Garamantes were amazingly advanced, developing sophisticated irrigation systems that enabled them to build cities and grow gardens in the midst of drought. Their settlements were impressive fortifications with extensive agricultural areas. Archaeological finds further testify to a high degree of social organization and technological progress. Prehistoric rock drawings go back even further in time. Like the famous drawings in the prehistoric caves of southern France and Spain, the cave paintings of Africa also depict scenes of daily life and the animal world. Today, the ruins of ancient trading towns tell the story of the trans-Saharan trade routes. The Egyptian Empire once flourished in the northeast of the Sahara, while the Sahara bordered the Nubian Empire in the south. To the west lay the empires of Ghana and Mali. The heart of the Sahara was formed by the Berbers, and later Carthage came to power in the north. These discoveries describe the Sahara as a colorful habitat and place of passage, a melting pot of peoples and a center of cultural exchange. If we believe Graham Hancock, one people united all of these other peoples, inspired them, and brought incredible advances in civilization to formerly backward farmers and shepherds. In terms of cultural history, the period of the fall of Atlantis is said to coincide with the time when the first great empires, such as the Garamantes, suddenly possessed expanded knowledge and advanced urban development. This knowledge supposedly came from the Antilleans, who survived the catastrophe and then settled throughout Africa, the Mediterranean, and South America, helping local groups of people to flourish. Who were the Antilleans really? They continue to fascinate people around the world to this day. Although it has never been proven that Atlantis really existed, many people are heartily certain that the legendary island in the ocean really did exist. Every year, a conference is held at which experts share the latest findings and discoveries relating to Atlantis. The Reichat structure has already been discussed here several times, and the exact correspondence between the ring walls and Plato's description of Atlantis is convincing. But the problem is that the Eye of the Sahara is too far from the coast. The only real source about Atlantis is Plato's philosophical work from ancient Greece. Plato tells of an advanced civilization that existed thousands of years before his time and perished in a devastating catastrophe. In the legends, the Antilleans are often described as descendants of Poseidon and mortal women who were demagogues with extraordinary abilities and a deep understanding of the mysteries of the universe. They are said to have had extraordinarily advanced technologies that were in many ways superior to our modern technology. The ideas range from energy sources reminiscent of today's power stations to impressive flying machines and superior war machines. Even more speculative are the theories that suggest extraterrestrial influences on Atlantis. They argue that either the Atlanteans themselves came from other stars or were at least influenced by extraterrestrial visitors, which would explain their seemingly supernatural abilities and advanced knowledge. Closely related to this is the idea that Atlantis was a source of lost civilization knowledge and the true cradle of the modern human race and civilization. Some of the most intriguing speculations even suggest that Atlantis may have existed in a parallel dimension or alternate timeline, which would explain the lack of concrete evidence in our physical reality. Some shamans or clairvoyant mediums claim that Atlantis really existed as a continent in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. The Atlanteans maintained colonies in South America, Africa, and the Mediterranean region. This means that the Eye of the Sahara could not have been the center of Atlantis, but possibly one of the colonies on the mainland. The city could have been constructed in the image of the Antillean capital. If we look to other structures, evidence of people with helmets, spaceships, and strange flying saucers could be of Atlantean origin. Hancock puts forward ideas that ancient advanced races operated a global network of pyramids, power stations, and communication facilities. To this day, historians have not been able to explain why simple cattle herders suddenly developed into peoples like the ancient Egyptians. The same applies to the Sumerians, other advanced Mesopotamian civilizations, or the mysterious Minoan Empire, which brought modern Greece to its early heyday. 4.6 billion-year-old meteorite. Whenever a meteorite falls to Earth, there will be evidence in the area where it made contact with the ground. One of these meteors was discovered in 2020 in the Sahara Desert. According to a study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, the meteor had many andesites, a black volcanic oil found in the area where tectonic plates collide. The properties of the rock have led scientists to believe that the rock was a piece of a protoplanet. Based on the dating from research, scientists believe that the rock broke off in the early stages of the solar system's development. Protoplanets are considered to be ancestors of the planets as we know them. There are various theories about this and how the solar system came to be. Most of the theories suggest that the protoplanets were way smaller than the Moon in the solar system. They also suggest that they would have been the current solar system if they were to be formed. The stone is one of the scientists' incredible new discovery under Sahara that changed everything. The discovery has made us look at the solar system in a different light. Supernova IA explosion evidence. In 1992, scientists discovered a stone in the Sahara Desert, which was presumed to be the trace of the supernova IA explosion. The supernova explosion was a type of star explosion that caused some energetic waves in the universe. It is believed that the meteor's impact on the Earth led to the breaking of rocks and the development of the Great Sand Sea in southwestern Egypt. The supernova experience is also believed to have been the start of mankind after the dinosaurs were wiped from the Earth. The Lost River. Even though the Sahara Desert is dry at the moment, there was a time when the desert had water and rivers running through it. Climate change has covered up evidence of the rivers and lakes initially in the desert. But just like there was evidence of water being on Mars in the past, there has been evidence of rivers running through the Sahara Desert. One of these rivers seems to have dried out in Mauritania. An undersea canyon was also discovered that seems to have been the riverbed. Another confirmation of this river was a satellite image that shows the trail of said river. All this evidence points to rivers and other water resources in the Sahara Desert before everything changed. It is no wonder the whole concept of this desert keeps baffling scientists, geologists, and the general population. Whales in the Sahara. Don't let present looks fool you. There was a time when the Sahara Desert was so hot and humid that it had sea life. At the top of the list of these creatures was the whale. You heard that right. In Wadi al-Hitan, Egypt, there has been evidence of a Tethys ocean. The ocean was also known as Whale Valley because of the numerous whales that inhabited the area. As the water dried away, the whales remained behind and died. Even though the sands of the desert covered the fossils, archaeologists were able to dig these bones up. The evidence goes to show just how much water was in the Sahara Desert at the moment. The shocking thing about these fossils is the fact that their bones had feet. It gives into the idea that some scientists had of whales. Theories explain that whales were land mammals but decided to go live in the sea. As a result, their bodies evolved and they lost the use of their feet, since the feet were no longer necessary. While one might try to argue this out, the presence of whale fossils with limbs resembling feet does make quite the argument. If you have been with us until this point, take a minute to hit the like buttons and subscribe to our channel if you haven't. We produce content like this on many different topics. Now let's get back to our list of awesome discoveries. Number 13 will shock you. Nabta stones. Despite the harsh living conditions in the desert, there will always be a group of people who make it a home. In the case of the Sahara Desert, these people come from the Neolithic tribes of the desert. These groups will make a home near a water source and build their lives there until the water dries up and they decide to move and start their new life elsewhere. When people lived in Nabta Playa about 6,000 years ago, the area was new to flooding. The rainwater created a lake in the area, which services the community. These tribes not only found sustenance there, but built their community. With the community came different practices. Based on archaeological findings, it is believed that these people would sacrifice their animals to a deity. There have been dug up bones of cows and sheep that were ritually buried. About 600 years ago, the community that stayed in the region set up large stones in a circle that had more rocks radiating outward. The rocks are evidence of one of the first astronomical aligned structures ever built. While there is no evidence of what these rocks were set up for, it is believed that the people were aligning them to Orion's belt. The rocks show that astrology matters have been here for a while and have had some significance to the region's people at that time. Eye of the Sahara. The Eye of the Sahara is also known as Glub-e-Rikat and is a structure that can be seen from outer space. The feature is found on the Ardar Plateaus near Wendane. The Rikat structure is believed to have links to the lost city of Atlantis. Even though the structure has been known to the locals for a while, it became known to the rest of the world in the 1960s when astronauts photographed it. They used the Eye of the Sahara's landmark when tracking their landing sequence. The structure is so big that it can be seen from outer space. The structure was then photographed after the landing of the astronauts by a satellite that helped give more data on the structure itself. The satellite was able to calculate the length and width of the eye as well as the depth it went to. It helped give a better perspective on the Eye of the Sahara and its composition. The initial assumption people made was that the Eye of the Desert was caused by a meteor. Upon further study, scientists' incredible discovery under Sahara changes everything. It was discovered that there was no outer space interference and earthly influences caused the Eye of the Sahara. This discovery made the archaeologists want to dig further. The formation continues with rocks dating back to 100 million years before life on Earth existed. Some theories by philosophers like Plato claim that the Eye of the Sahara is connected to the lost city of Atlantis. Since it was found in Mauritania, it has been hiding in plain sight all these years. Since Atlantis is still being looked for, the Eye of the Sahara is still one of the mysteries that mankind is yet to understand. It is believed that the sinking of Atlantis led to a shift in climate change, which is experienced to date. Clayton rings. The Sahara Desert remains a mystery, and with this next discovery, people were shocked at what the discovery was all about. The one thing most people have noticed when it comes to the Sahara is that there is so much that one needs to learn about the desert. One of these things is the Clayton rings. These rings were found in Egypt, in one of the inhospitable parts of the Sahara Desert. These rings are conical and open at both ends. They were named after the person who discovered them, Patrick Andrew Clayton. They were discovered with other potters that have an opening, but the rings have never fitted as lids. There is no sign of them being used by Egyptians living by the Nile. Rather, most people believe they came from nomadic Egyptians who were herders. These rings are believed to be a part of the people that shaped Egyptian culture. They were discovered in areas where herders and hunters used to stay and areas away from these grounds. The disparity between these two locations made people question the significance of the rings. No one person has been able to pinpoint the use of the rings, yet the people who used them went to great lengths to transport them across deserts. Whatever their use was will stay a mystery to date, since there is not one explorer that has been able to decipher them. Dinosaur fossil. Over the years, many fossils have been discovered in the desert. These fossils gave us a look into how life was a pre-human era. Some of the fossils found in the Sahara Desert were dinosaur fossils. While some might argue that dinosaurs never existed, the evidence backing this up is very clear. One of the fossils found was the fossil of the largest carnivore dinosaur to ever live, The Spinosaurus. Research shows that the Spinosaurus lived over 95 million years ago, stood 7 meters high, and was about 16 meters long. At that size, the Spinosaurus was bigger than what we now know as the T-Rex. This dinosaur had a huge sail of bones tusking out of its back and had several adaptations that had scientists in awe. Further studies show that the Spinosaurus was a semi-aquatic dinosaur, pushing the idea that the Sahara had rivers and lakes flowing through it. The Spinosaurus bones were initially destroyed in World War II, so one could not study them further. It was not until the second set of fossils was discovered in Morocco that the researchers had the time to study it. Some of the findings of the Spinosaurus show that it lived partly in the water. It had long, flat feet, perfect for paddling, and nostrils placed high on its snout for easier breathing when mostly submerged. The sail on its back must have been as scary for inhabitants of the Earth back the same way we get scared of sharks today. The chilling discovery made after studying these fossils makes me glad there are no dinosaurs in my day. Aside from the Spinosaurus, the most significant find, other fossils have made it clear that the Sahara had so many dinosaurs inhabiting it. The lakes in the Sahara. When you picture the Sahara, it is impossible to think of it as having any water sources. The truth is far from it. Based on the number of communities living in this desert and the number of lakes found in different parts of the Sahara, it is clear that there are water sources. Apart from Lake Chad, the largest lake in the Sahara, other lakes are in the desert. Records show that there are about 20 lakes in the Sahara Desert. The only reason no one talked about them is they are spun so wide it is easy to miss them. Based on how far apart they are, it would be unwise for you to go out searching for a drink in the desert. Best to take the supply with you. Some of the lakes are also salty, so the water might not be suitable for drinking. Nomadic families stay around these water sources since they need water for themselves and their livestock. It is a good thing they keep camels then. A cow would not survive the desert heat and lack of water. World War II Kitty Hawk Plane. During World War II, Flight Sergeant Dennis Copping disappeared while flying a damaged Kitty Hawk P-40. He boarded the flight on June 28, 1942, and was never heard from again. Search and rescue efforts amounted to nothing, and people gave up on the search. It was not until 2010 that remains of the plane were found in the Sahara Desert. An oil worker stumbled upon them by chance since no one was looking. The strange thing was, the aircraft was intact and did not look hampered with, save that the parachute had been opened and was used to create a shelter by the plane. The plane was taken to Al Aman and restored. Some people believe this was not the best course of action and the plane should have been left in the desert to honor the young pilot's memory. Others felt the restoration job was so shoddy it looked like a poor paint job. As for the remains of Flying Sergeant Dennis, there has been no evidence of his remains nearby. Whether he died in the desert or found his way to freedom is another mystery that the Sahara will continue holding on to. Home to sea monsters. The Sahara Desert is one of the areas archaeologists love looking around. At the same time, discovering fossils and whales might have been shocking. Other discoveries make me glad I live in this present era. One other discovery is that of sea monster fossils. While we have whales that spun several cruise ship lengths, the fossils found in the Sahara show that there were bigger sea monsters back in the day. One of the fossils' discoveries was that of a 9-meter-long crocodile named M. rex. M. rex is so far the biggest crocodile to have existed. It is believed that M. rex lived around Tethyan's Ocean, since that was the only place to accommodate him at the time. At Tethys, M. rex used a big mouth and a big bite to feed on ocean turtles and fish. It is also believed that M. rex might have snacked on the carcass of large creatures that shared its home at Tethyan's Ocean. Compared to the present-day crocodile, M. rex is a mammoth and would have been a sight and a terror in our day. Libyan desert glass. Do you think you know all there is to know about meteors and the wreckage they leave behind? Think again. One of the aftermaths of meteors striking Earth or any other planet is leaving behind cosmic beauties. It is believed that over 29 million years ago, a meteor struck Earth with so much energy that it melted the Libyan region into sheets of melted glass. While this killed most of the population on Earth, it left behind Libyan desert glass. Even though no one has done the crater left by the meteors, the Libyan desert glass remains to date. When Howard Carter opened the tomb of Tutankhamun, some of the treasures found were Libyan glass. One of these treasures was a bejeweled breastplate. At the center of this breastplate was a sacred scarab beetle carved from green glass. While it is likely that the Egyptians have no idea where the gals came from, it is obvious that this is one of the few treasures made from outwardly metal. There was even a dagger in the tomb that was made from iron that came from a meteorite. All these treasures show how many materials were left behind after the meteor strike. There is a theory that more treasures are yet to be discovered from Libyan desert glass. meteors and craters. The Sahara Desert has so many craters left behind by meteors. During the dinosaur period, so many meteors hit Earth which caused the extinction of most dinosaurs. The species that survived evolved into some of the animals as we know today. While not all of the craters have been found, archaeologists keep finding evidence of these events in the desert. The known ones are the meteor that hit near the Libyan desert and caused the formation of desert glass. It is believed that more discoveries will be made as time goes by. Craters might look interesting and fun, but if the dinosaur extinction is anything to go by, it is clear that this is not something we would want to experience in the present day. The Lost Fortress. One of the things satellite images have helped with is bringing to light things that might have been missed by explorers. Based on satellite imaging, areas around the Libyan desert look like humans occupied them. These are areas built to look like really sophisticated foresters. What satellite images do is figure out if certain patterns in inhabitable areas of the desert make sense. In collaboration with oil industries, archaeologists can move into these areas and take a closer look at everything. By taking a closer look, researchers could ascertain that the Garamantes occupied the area. Before Colonel Gaddafi toppled the Garamantes, they led a sophisticated life in the desert. The Garamantes flourished from around the 2nd century BC to until 7th century AD. Since the area they lived in was very arid, they dug underground channels to get water from their ancient reservoirs. With time, these reservoirs ran out of water and the fields withered. With time, the Sahara covered the fortresses built and the remains of the forest and villages. What remained was whatever the satellites could pick up from above. Fun facts about the Sahara. Before we go to the last discovery scientists have made about the Sahara, here are some fun facts that you should know about this desert. Did you know that the Sahara Desert is the largest in the world? It encompasses most of North Africa and some of East Africa along North Sudan. The desert spans the countries of Morocco, Algeria, Chad, Egypt, Libya, Mali, Mauritania, Niger, Western Sahara, Sudan, and Tunisia. The desert spans 3.6 million square miles and is as big as China or the USA. That is a lot of sun and heat. The Sahara Desert has occupants despite the heat. The nomads living in the Sahara are called Bedouin nomads and keep camels. Speaking of camels, the easiest way to get through the Sahara Desert is through camels. While a couple of cars might get through it, sand is slippery, and if you run out of gas, you are on your own. Even though some areas have oil drills, most of the desert is bare. Getting to a gas station is not an option, so saddle up. One of the things the Sahara is known for is the high heat that it gets. Since there is very little vegetation, temperatures hit a staggering 136 degrees Fahrenheit. There are days when the temperature might drop, but it stays high for the better part. On the other hand, the temperatures at night drop to almost freezing, so it might take some getting used to. It still makes for a trip if you are up for it. Did you know that the Sahara Desert is more rock than sand? Most people assume that because deserts are made of sand, the Sahara is as well. While there was a time when the Sahara was very sandy, the wind blew most of the sand away and exposed the hard rocky underneath. As it stands, there is more rock in the Sahara. Watch out for that pebble and ensure you keep your toes tucked in safe when you take a walk next. The last fun fact about the Sahara is that it has been used as a set. The Star Wars franchise shoots in the Sahara, which gives it a futuristic and an out-of-this-world feeling. The desert has been used in movies like Mad Max: Fury Road and continues to be the go-to location for people who want something unique and different. Now that we have covered most of the fun facts about the Sahara Desert, let's go back to our list. Before you finish this list, make sure you like and subscribe to our channel. We make shocking content, yet educational at the same time. Click the notification bell so you know whenever we upload a new video. The last discovery made by scientists about the Sahara Desert will shock you just as much as it shocked them. The Sahara was once tropical and had vegetation. The one thing most people struggle to believe is that the Sahara Desert once covered with vegetation. Looking at it now with all the dunes and heat, one cannot imagine that the Sahara was green and luscious. However, satellite imaging and the presence of fossils show that this is true. The Sahara was humid and had vegetation. Sahara used to be a tropical area, and to understand how it became a desert, we need to look at the past. The Sahara used to experience both humidity and aridity caused by wobbles of the Earth's axis. The change is based on how the sun's rays hit the Earth's surface. Over time, there has been a change in how these rays get to the Earth. The northern part of Africa receives rain during the monsoon period. ensuring enough greenery and the rivers have water. About 450 years ago, the time between humidity and aridity happened so fast that the desert did not get sufficient rain. With this, the Sahara Desert developed into what we have today. There have been studies done by different researchers that try to explain what happened to cause this to happen. One of the findings was that the Earth's tilt changed slightly, which meant that the Sahara region was exposed to the sun or longer. There was also evidence that overgrazing reduced the Earth's atmosphere, which led to the rapid development of the desert. In a way, the desertification of the Sahara was influenced by humans. El-Ma, an 800-meter-long, elongated lake called Mother of the Water, can be found near Awarbi in Fezzan in the Libyan portion of the Sahara. Numerous subterranean water reservoirs provide water to the oasis that the lake creates. The lake's salinity rises up to 34%. A ring of various plants that is 10 to 15 meters broad encircles the El-Ma. This boundary is only broken by a 50-meter-long sloping bank on the eastern bank, which is also enclosed by a vegetative border. There have already been winter sightings of desert sparrows, Passer simplex, and common moorheads, Galuna chloropus. The king and queen of the arid world. The arid world is made up of incredibly dry climates that may be able to sustain special life forms and can be either hot or cold. The king and queen of the arid world are the Sahara Desert and the Antarctica, with Sahara being king, taking up 1/3 of Africa, and Antarctica, the queen, being a whole continent. The Sahara Desert occupies almost all of northern Africa, stretches 3,320,000 square miles, 8,600,000 square kilometers in overall size. The actual extent varies as the desert expands and contracts over time, and is roughly 3,000 miles, 4,800 kilometers long, east to west, and 800 to 1,200 miles, north to south. Castle in the sand. Archaeologists claim that the Sahara actual castles in the sand, constructed by prehistoric society, have been discovered. More than 100 fortified villages from a lost civilization can be seen in southwest Libya on recent satellite images. The settlements, which are believed to have been established between AD 1 and 500, belong to the highly developed but enigmatic Garamantes, a people who ruled from roughly the 2nd century BC to the 7th century AD. After carefully studying contemporary satellite data, particularly high-resolution images utilized by the oil sector, as well as aerial photographs recorded from the 1950s and 1960s, researchers discovered the walled towns, villages, and farms of the Garamantes. Eye of the Desert. Rishat's structure, also known as Glub el-Risha, is the official name of this peculiar phenomenon. It was found in June 1965 by American astronauts McDivitt and White while on the Gemini 4 space mission. It was once thought to be a meteorite impact crater because of the correspondence of its circular rings. But since there was no evidence of molten rock, this theory was quickly disproved. The structure is now categorized as the product of a geological uplift dating to more than 100 million years ago, according to the most credible theory supported by 2 Canadian experts, a process that caused a geologic dome, which was constructed when the Earth's surface was much larger, to erode severely before collapsing. Because of the millions of years' worth of water and wind erosion, the concentric rings of varied colors show the different types of rock that have been devoured at varying rates over time. The exact circular form is still mysterious, though. The Sahara's Lost River. It is believed that the Tamanrasset once flowed over the Sahara from sources in the Hagar Highlands and southern Atlas Mountains in what now is Algeria. The Cap Timiris Canyon, which is 3 kilometers deep and 2.5 kilometers broad in some areas and located off the coast of Mauritania, is believed to have been fed by a river. Previously, the inhospitable Sahara Desert was believed to have made a western route for migrating to Europe unviable. It is believed that the existence of the river had significant effects on human migration from Central Africa to the Middle East, Europe, and Asia. Before, it was thought that the hostile Sahara Desert rendered a western migration path to Europe unviable. Valley of the Whales. The evolution of whales is one of the iconic shifts that characterize the story of life on Earth, and Wad An Hen is the most significant location in the world to illustrate this transformation. It beautifully depicts their shape and way of life as they shift from being land animals to living in the sea. In terms of the quantity, concentration, and quality of its fossils, as well as their accessibility and placement in beautiful and protected terrain, it outperforms the values of other comparable locations. There are remarkable collections of shark teeth, sirenians, and reptiles from the Genanana Formation, as well as petrified remains of Archaeoceti, primitive whales making the transition of cetaceans to marine life 40 to 41 million years ago. The strata in Wid Altu date back to the Middle Eocene epoch and cover an area of 200 kilometers squared, 77 squared miles. They are rich in vertebrate fossils. There are many fossils and they frequently exhibit superb preservation. The skeletons and bones of whales and sea cows are the most noticeable fossils, and there are over 100 known examples of each. 1,500 marine vertebrate fossil skeletons make up the unusually high concentration of fossil whales in Watinayan, Whale Valley, which is a relatively small area. Extinct carnivorous whale. An ancient amphibious four-legged whale fossil, 43 million years old, was discovered in Egypt's Sahara Desert by a team of scientists under the direction of Egyptians. A whale with legs? That is correct. Exactly, a whale with legs. The authors of the study say that this creature had unique features of the skull and that its mandible suggests a capacity for more efficient oral mechanical processing. According to the study's authors, this creature's skull possessed distinctive traits, and its jaw may have been designed to facilitate more effective oral mechanical processing. The new whale, known as Phoemerodicus inibus, was likely a top predator, according to the researchers. It had an estimated body length of about 3 meters, 10 feet, and a body mass of about 600 kilograms, 1,300 pounds. The fragment of its bones identified it as the most primitive protocetid whale yet discovered in Africa. This discovery suggests that the Sahara had a very rich ecosystem at one point in time. The largest dinosaur. The largest carnivorous dinosaur discovered yet spent the majority of its time in the water, according to a discovery of more than 1,000 dinosaur teeth in the Sahara Desert. The 50-foot-tall, 7-ton Spinosaurus, which was bigger than the Tyrannosaurus, roamed North Africa between 95 and 100 million years ago. The studies show that the Spinosaur would have roamed the lost river Tamarisset and could prove that dinosaurs did in fact invade the aquatic habitats. Desert glass of Libya. La Chatelierite makes up the majority of the Libyan desert glass, also known as Great Sand Sea Glass, an impactite that may be found in the eastern Sahara, the deserts of eastern Libya, and the western deserts of Egypt. Over tens of square kilometers, desert glass fragments can be found. It's unclear where the desert glass comes from. Long thought to have meteoric origins, recent studies link the glass to impact features like zircon disintegration, vaporized quartz, and meteoric metals, as well as to an impact crater. Some geologists compare the glass to trinonite, which is a mineral found when sand is subjected to the thermal radiation of a nuclear explosion, and believe that the glass is the result of radioactive melting and meteoric huge aerial explosions. Like obsidian, it was snapped and used to make tools during the Pleistocene. According to dating methods, the Libyan desert glass developed about 29 million years ago. It was snapped and used to manufacture tools during the Pleistocene, much like obsidian. Gobero skeletons. The earliest known cemetery in the Sahara Desert is the Gobero archaeological site, which dates back to about 8000 BCE. The website has crucial details for archaeologists on how early humans adapted to a dynamic environment. Gobero, called after the Tuareg name of the area, is a city in Niger's Teneri Desert. It is the primary location of the Kiphian and Tenerian cultures of the Holocene. The location was found in 2000 by a team under the direction of University of Chicago paleontologist and geologist Paul Sereno, whose previous expeditions to the area had unearthed a number of fossils, including those of the Crocodilomorph Sarcophagus and the previously undiscovered dinosaur Nigersaurus. When team photographer Mike Hetwer found the site on October 13, 2000, it appeared to date to the early to mid-Holocene or Green Sahara period due to its size, scope, and abundance of animal bones found in watery environments, 7500 to 3500 BCE. Meteors in the Sahara. A multinational study team identified what appears to be a previously unidentified crater in the middle of the Sahara Desert by examining satellite photographs of the topography between the Egyptian villages of Karat el Aban and Karat el Alafa. The alleged crater, which has been given the working name El Bar Crater, measures about 327 meters, 1,073 feet across, with a 1,027 meter, 3,370 feet long rim. The shape resembles a typical impact crater, like the famous meteor crater in Arizona. The researchers also found chemical traces supporting the idea that this landform was formed by a high-energy impact event. Depending on mineral content, rocks absorb or reflect different wavelengths of light. Using satellite images created by combining various wavelengths of light, the researchers identified a high concentration of orthopyroxene in the basalt rocks of the crater, while the surrounding rocks show a low concentration of this mineral. This observation suggests that the rocks were melted and then slowly cooled, forming large crystals of orthopyroxene. Other craters formed from meteorite impacts are the Tamara crater, Amguide craters, and more. Nabta Playa. Africa's Nabta Playa is around 700 miles south of Egypt's Great Pyramid of Giza. Nabta Playa is the oldest stone circle in the world and may be Earth's oldest astronomical observatory. It was constructed more than 7,000 years ago. It was built by a nomadic cattle-worshipping sect to commemorate the summer solstice and the beginning of the monsoon season. Egypt planned a huge dam along the Nile River in the 1960s that would flood significant ancient archaeological sites. In order to assist in the relocation of well-known buildings and to scan the area for new sites before they were gone for good, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, stepped in with money. But a prominent American archaeologist named Fred Wendorf saw another opportunity. However, a well-known American archaeologist by the name of Fred Wendorf saw another chance. Away from the Nile River, he intended to look for pharaonic Egypt's earliest roots. Singing Dunes of Sahara. Sometimes, the infinite dunes of the Sahara release a peculiar penetrating symphony that fills the air with low-frequency vibrations, like the sound of horns and tribal drums crying for war. The once mysterious phenomenon, documented centuries ago by Marco Polo to Charles Darwin, is produced by the three upper layers of sand moving over the deepest ones. When a certain level of dryness is reached, the desert itself cries out, like an avalanche rumbling that echoes across miles of emptiness. The deepest layers of sand are covered by the top three layers of sand, creating the once enigmatic occurrence that was recorded centuries ago by Marco Polo and Charles Darwin. The desert cries out when it becomes sufficiently dry, sounding like an avalanche rumbling across miles of emptiness. Mirages of the Sahara. A mirage is an optical illusion brought on by atmospheric factors, particularly the perception of a sheet of water in the desert or a scorching road due to warm air's ability to reflect light from the sky. The Sahara, being incredibly large and hot, makes it easy to see mirages. The intriguing part is that the Sahara has more than 1,000 different mirages, with a bunch of them even appearing on maps. Sahara's rich aquifer system. The largest known system of fossil water aquifers in the world is called the Nubian Sandstone Aquifer System, NSAS. It covers the political borders of 4 nations in northeastern Africa and is buried underground in the easternmost part of the Sahara Desert. NSAS has a land region of a little over 2 million kilometers squared, comprising most of Egypt, northwestern Sudan, northeastern Chad, and southeastern Libya. The significance of the NSAS as a potential water source for future development programs in these countries is extraordinary. It is thought to contain an estimated 150,000 kilometers cubed of groundwater. The system is used by the Libyan Great Man-Made River (GMMR) project, which draws significant volumes of water for agricultural and human consumption from this aquifer each year. Through the IAEA UNDP GEF Nubian project, the International Atomic Energy Agency has been collaborating with the 4 NSAS nations since 2006 to advance understanding of the aquifer's intricacies. The International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, as well as government officials from the NSAS countries are project partners. The long-term objective of the project is to implement equitable and sensible management of the NSAS as a useful means of fostering socio-economic development in the area and safeguarding biodiversity and land resources. Desert? My ass. Today, many people think that the Sahara has always been a desert, but this is a mistake. We all know that many millions of years ago, the Earth was almost completely covered by great primordial oceans. But when I tell you that the Sahara was a wet place with a lot of life, it was not that long ago. The time at which the Sahara was still a tropical rainforest actually lies only some 1,000 years back. Where today there are barren and endless dunes, mountains, stony plateaus, and plains covered with sand and gravel, there was a huge rainforest that once covered almost half of Africa. What happened to cause this area to change so drastically? Researchers suspect that climate changes slowly transformed the rainforest into a steppe-like woodland. Forested sections alternated with extensive grasslands. With the sedentarization of humans came cattle herds. Thousands of cattle overgrazed the grasslands, slash-and-burn agriculture destroyed the forests, and erosion did the rest. Over time, this led to less and less moisture in the region. The land became desolate, and the many farm animals mercilessly ate away at the sparse greenery. A once rich land became a desert that no longer provided food for animals and living conditions for people became worse and worse. Traces of this eventful and completely unexpected history of the Sahara have since been found in many places. Especially in the peripheral areas and wherever there were old human settlements, archaeologists can now trace the unusual history of this stretch of land. In recent decades, the Sahara has become a scientific hotspot. Archaeologists, climatologists, and geologists are on hand to explore not only the Sahara's past, but also its future. The Sahara continues to expand due to massive sandstorms. People in the margins are being squeezed together and wondering what the future holds. Experts fear that the Sahara's expansion could eventually swallow the entire African continent. Even Europe is not safe, according to climate researchers and geologists. Violent storms could blow gigantic masses of sand across the Mediterranean to southern Italy, Spain, and Greece. But by no means all scientists are of the opinion that the desert will spread unstoppably. On the contrary, the Sahara could revert to a rainforest in just a few hundred years. Climate models have shown that the then dramatically increased water level worldwide, higher temperatures, and rainfall will contribute to the Sahara regaining its old green face. We desperately need to know more about these processes, and so researchers continue to dig tirelessly in the desert, finding not only evidence of rich rainforests, but also million-year-old artifacts and relics of most peculiar animals. Before we show you that whales once walked through the Sahara on 4 legs, we would like to introduce you to a very special find that has a connection to the mystical people of Atlantis. The Eye of the Sahara. The Eye of the Sahara is a geological structure that was first discovered from space in the 1960s. Aboard the Gemini space capsule, some of history's astronauts flew into Earth's orbit and saw a formation on the African continent that couldn't be stranger. Circular, like a spiral, and with very strange colors to boot, this anomaly in the desert floor looks out of this world. Honestly, if we hadn't told you that this was a geological structure, what would you have thought of first? A flying saucer about to land? The foundations of a futuristic city? Or something else entirely? In fact, no one knows exactly where the structure, also known worldwide as Guleb-e-Rishat, came from or what caused it. The round shape and the rings are unique in this world. Satellite images provided evidence of an impact from space, but after the rock was meticulously examined, no evidence of an asteroid or meteorite was found. All rock layers are 100% of terrestrial origin. Local tribes have known about the formation for centuries, yet even their legends and stories do not know the true origins of the eye. They use the mountain formation only as a landmark. The circular shape is also not visible from the ground. The structure could be around 100 million years old, and in the US, a popular YouTuber came up with the idea that the Eye of the Sahara could be a relic of the legendary continent of Atlantis. Many believe that Atlantis sank completely into the ocean, but the attentive observer noticed that the Eye of Sahara has the same size and shape as Plato's Atlantis. If we consider that 10,000 years ago and more, a green landscape with mountains, rivers, and green floodplains existed here, the place could match Plato's description. Interestingly, unique pottery has been discovered in the area. No tribe or people of this area use even remotely similar pottery. To archaeologists, the pottery's make and use at this site is about like a plastic laundry basket showing up in an ancient Viking settlement. There are still so many unanswered questions about the Sahara's past, the people who once lived here, and possibly extinct civilizations. A whale in the Sahara? To get to the bottom of this find, we have to travel back a little further than just to the tropical times of the Sahara. Let's turn the clock back a few million years again. At that time, the continental masses were much smaller than today. The Earth's climate was hot and humid. What is today the Sahara was mostly covered by an ocean. In this epoch, a very special creature made a remarkable step. Whales, like all living things, had once formed from sea creatures. For many millions of years, the whale's ancestor was a four-legged land mammal. And then this species decided to go back to the water. A tapir-like animal became the lactating giants of the seas that we still know and admire today. Egyptian scientists found some interesting relics of the intermediate stage in the Sahara, the remains of a four-legged whale that transformed from a herbivorous land mammal into a deadly predator with razor-sharp teeth. In its prime, this animal was one of the deadliest creatures in the seas. The transformation process into a carnivorous swimmer had taken about 10 million years. The team of scientists around the excavation leader Abdullah Gohar named the newly discovered whale Biomytesius inubus. Namesake was the Egyptian god Anubis, who stayed in the underworld with a dog's head. M-Rex, the monster crocodile. That the Sahara was anything but a tranquil place is shown by the findings of another fearsome animal. The colossus, which easily reached the size of a school bus, lurked in the wetlands and swamps. If unsuspecting dinosaurs came to the water holes or used the narrow land bridges for their moves through their hunting grounds, the giant crocodile struck. Researchers gave the name Machuamorosus rex to the creature that was most likely the largest crocodile of all time. In the journal Cretaceous Research, Italian paleontologist Federico Fanti described the prehistoric giant as the T-Rex of the seas. Accordingly, the animal was given the epithet M-Rex. In dangerousness, hunger, and lethality, M-Rex was in no way inferior to the T-Rex, which hunted exclusively on land. In the area of the Sahara, the monster stood definitely at the top of the food chain. According to Fenty, the newly discovered creature had an incredibly strong biting force that allowed it to crush its food just like that. Turtle shells cracked this reptile like a nut with thin shell. The find surprised in several ways, because the Rex crocodile group was long actually considered extinct about 150 million years ago. But the new find is 130 million years old. That sounds unspectacular at first, but these 20 million years are quite impressive. Researchers assumed that there had been a great mass extinction at the end of the Jurassic period. But the recent findings show that this was not the case, and many of the primeval monsters stayed on Earth much longer than previously assumed. Some people even go so far as to claim that some dinosaurs, giant lizards, and primeval hunters, like the giant shark Megalodon, survived. Everywhere on Earth, there are sightings of primeval predators. Although there is no proof so far, it is theoretically possible. Or what do you think? The bulldog dino. When it comes to strange animals in the Sahara, this species can't be missed. The discovery of a 10-meter-long upright walking carnivore with crippled front legs and a bulldog skull sent a shiver down the spine of scientists. This prehistoric beast also easily reached the dimensions of a bus and weighed about 3 tons. An encounter with the theropod might have been as deadly for other dinosaurs and lizards as an encounter with a hungry M-Rex. The strange predator with a ram-nosed dog face made the area unsafe about 98 million years ago. This place must have once been truly one of the scariest places on the planet. Presumably, these predators lived in large numbers near a river that flowed through the Sahara Desert at the time and was lined with mangrove-like trees. Unusually fast, agile, and with a biting power weighing tons, these hunters could easily take down even a 70-ton Titanosaurus. Particularly bizarre on this animal was a type of membrane that served as a dorsal sail. A change in blood flow caused the color of the sail to change. Researchers still don't know if the bulldog dinosaur used this color change to attract mates, scare enemies, or regulate body temperature. This animal only had very few enemies, and the theory of the beauty feature with the courtship is considered most probable. It was secured today in the oasis Baharia approximately 180 miles southwest of Cairo, and presumably these strange creatures are by no means all secrets which slumber in the sand of the Sahara. The work in the largest
submerged civilization in the Sahara. A team of archaeologists who were able to make the excavations in the Sahara possible with funding from the EU have found the remains of a submerged people in the Libyan part of the Sahara. Researchers from the University of Leicester were able to prove, using satellite images, that there were more than 100 fortified villages with fortress-like structures, as well as several larger towns with irrigation systems, stone cemeteries, and wells, dating from 1 to 500 AD. These are the remains of the kingdom of an ancient Berber people, the Garamantes. Apparently, these people are historically more important than previously thought, as they were far more advanced than other civilizations at the time. P-40 Kitty Hawk crash. In 2012, an RAF P-40 Kitty Hawk fighter plane was found to have crashed over the Sahara Desert during the turmoil of World War II, and has been immaculately preserved in the desert since 1942. The aircraft has been perfectly preserved and provides a testimony to the time. Even some of the technology still works, a sensation in the history of aviation. Lake Gafsa. Lac de Gafsa, also called Mysterious Lake, appeared unexpectedly in 2014 on the Laris Road, 25 kilometers from the town of Gafsa in Tunisia. The origin or formation of the lake is not clear. The most likely explanation is that a small earthquake destroyed the rocks above the water table, pushing countless cubic meters of water to the surface. Since the discovery of the lake by desert shepherds, Lake Gafsa has become an overnight curiosity for locals and an international tourist sensation. Visitors even bathe or dive in the lake. The area is very rich in phosphates, and the water could be carcinogenic, although there is no official ban on swimming in the lake. Test results for possible radioactivity are still pending. Libyan desert glass. There are several theories as to how the Libyan desert glass was formed. One theory is that the glass was most likely formed by the impact of a meteorite, which is said to have hit North Africa about 28 to 30 million years ago. Due to the high pressure and hot temperatures, the sand was melted and flung into the surrounding area. The glass could have been formed as it cooled down during flight. Another theory is that a hydrovolcanic explosion was responsible for the formation of the glass. Volcanic activity is known to have occurred particularly in large parts of the northeastern Sahara. The desert glass contains 98% Le Chatelierite, a natural quartz glass. It was already used in the Neolithic period as a tool for hunting. The Eye of Africa. Guelb-e-Richat, also called Richat structure, is translated as Eye of Africa, Bullseye, or Eye of the Sahara. It is a ring-shaped, crater-like geological surface structure in Mauritania in the west of the Sahara. Guelb means island mountain in the local language. The Eye of Africa is located in the province of Adra, which is about 40 kilometers northeast of the city of Qadain. The total diameter of the Eye of Africa is 45 kilometers. It's only a few meters high and consists mainly of sedimentary rock. Initially, it was thought to be meteorite craters, but it lacked the impact rocks that form when the meteorite hits the Earth's surface. The ring mound could also have been formed by a volcanic explosion. In the final analysis, the origin of the African eye has not been clarified. Scientists are still in disagreement about it. The structure is particularly visible from space, which is why astronauts use it as an orientation point and landmark during space missions. Martian soil in the Sahara. In the African desert, Bedouins discovered a stone consisting of Martian soil that is more than 4 billion years old, as was determined in an American laboratory. Thus, the meteorite stone is only slightly younger than our solar system and provides mankind with valuable insights into the young years of the red planet. Researchers have concluded, based on the nature of the stone, that Mars formed a surface crust in the first 100 million years after its formation, and that this crust is as old as the oldest crusts of the Earth and the Moon. Scientists were able to find zircon crystals inside the stone, which indicate that the first Martian crust must have melted again. This in turn provides clues to the early climate of Mars and its importance for possible life. Skeleton Coast on the seacoast of Namibia. The Skeleton Coast is located in northern Namibia and its hinterland, which stretches from Swakopmund to Kumene, the border river to northern Angola. Geographically, it belongs to the Namib Desert. From a geologist's point of view, much of the Skeleton Coast is one of the oldest landscapes in the world. Large parts are up to 1.5 billion years old. Fog, strong surf, as well as unpredictable currents, thanks to the northern Benguela Current, have shaped the coast in an incomparable way and have made it very dangerous for seafaring for centuries. Countless shipwrecks lie near the shore and on the beach, bearing witness to the sometimes very tragic shipping accidents. The local population refers to the region as the land God created in anger, and Portuguese soldiers christened the section, which is highly dangerous for ships, the Gate of Hell. If a crew member did manage to escape ashore when his wrecked ship sank, his life was still lost because the extreme aridity of an uninhabited coastal desert awaited him. In most cases, the stranded had no chance of survival and died of thirst within a very short time. So it's not surprising that this stretch of coast is called the Skeleton Coast because of the countless shipwrecks and human remains. But it was not only ships and their crews that were doomed by the sea at this point. The skeletons of whales washed ashore are also characteristic of this coast. Today, the region is a national park and has become an El Dorado for anglers due to its abundance of fish. Rare cave burial site discovered in Africa. A team led by a geoarchaeologist and a speleologist has discovered a rare cave burial site in Africa. The 14th century underground burial site was discovered in 2018 deep in the tropical forest of Gabon in West Central Africa along the Atlantic coast. Hundreds of artifacts were found scattered among the human remains at the bottom of the cave. Archaeologists are convinced that these finds will contribute to the overall picture of historical development in Africa, about which not much is yet known. This discovery is unique in Africa because virtually no human remains exist in Africa, and researchers are finally learning a little more about the living conditions of the earlier populations of Central Africa. Among the artifacts are 30 human skeletons, as well as pierced teeth of hyenas and panthers. Iron remains in the form of knives, axes, and spearheads, as well as bracelets and collar jewelry, have also been found, providing valuable insights into the culture of the time. The Lost Libraries of Chinguetti. During the Middle Ages, the outposts of the Sahara were often full of travelers, traders, and pilgrims carrying out their various tasks. The pilgrims are of particular interest here as they shared their religious scriptures with each other and with their hosts. These religious scriptures were kept in special places. One such place is Chinguetti, but the rare texts in places like Chinguetti are in danger. Chinguetti is a town on the Adrar Plateau and the Adar region of northern Mauritania. While the surrounding area has been inhabited by humans for thousands of years, Chinguetti became increasingly well known in the Middle Ages due to its status as a trading center. As one of the few outposts in the Sahara, it also became a meeting place for pilgrims from the regions on their way to the holy city of Mecca. One consequence of this was the establishment of libraries where the religious texts these pilgrims left behind on their onward journey were kept. Today, only a handful of these ancient libraries remain, so they are of great historical importance. Nevertheless, it's a race against time, as the way these manuscripts are stored does not contribute to their preservation. Not only religious manuscripts are stored in these libraries, but also works from the fields of astronomy, law, and mathematics, because Chinguetti was also a center of intellectual activity in its heyday. What is also special about the Chinguetti libraries is the fact that they are not under state administration, but originated as a private enterprise and continue to be run as such. The collection of manuscripts is passed down from one generation to the next until the present. For example, a private library was established in the 19th century by Sidi ul Muhammad Habot and has been in the same family for 4 generations. The Habot family collection contains up to 1,400 manuscripts on a dozen different subjects. The manuscripts in this library also date from different periods. The oldest is from the 11th century and was written on Chinese paper. This tradition has various advantages, but unfortunately, this does not ensure expert storage for the preservation of the manuscripts, as each private citizen manages his library as he sees fit. How long these treasures of humanity will remain with us is therefore not known, and their continued existence is by no means assured. The finds just presented are only a sample of the mysterious discoveries that have been made in the deserts of this earth. What do you think? Are there more? Have you visited such a mysterious site yourself, or do you know of other discoveries that have not been mentioned here? Feel free to leave us a comment. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you soon.